tonight, and so I'm going to give you a little overview of emotional turbulence and how to approach it from the mind-body-spirit perspective, and then Harold will take that to a new level. And I just want to thank Harold for taking his valuable time, taking so much time off to be with us here. I also want to say that Harold was in many ways a great inspiration for me. And well before I started to write, I was reading his blockbuster New York Times bestseller, which was the first really mainstream book on meditation. It was called TM. What was the subtitle?
Discovering Inner Energy and Overcoming Stress.
Discovering Inner Energy and Overcoming Stress. And this really started the whole era of meditation, brought it to mainstream. So thank you once again. He's our mentor. We don't use the word guru, right? G-U-R-U. So, should I start, or do you want to say something?
Sure. Let me just say, I'm honored. I also feel very old having you refer to me as, and David as mentor, but I feel truly honored to be here this evening and to participate in this dialogue with you. If I had the honor of carrying the ball, you took the ball and scored numerous spiritual touchdowns in bringing the age of enlightenment into the collective consciousness.
Thank you, Harold. And of course, I didn't mean to imply that you're older than I am. I just look younger. And I even consider my children my mentors, so it has nothing to do with how old you are. Yeah. Okay. I think one has only to look at the news to see that something is really drastically wrong with our society. When just in the last 48 hours you hear about murders committed by children, you hear about major celebrities being shot to death by their own wife. There's something very drastically wrong with the emotional health of our society and also with the spiritual health of our society. And in many ways we are at a very critical point in our history as a species. For many thousands of years we've been the victims, if I may use that word, of the fight-flight response, which goes back a long time in our history when we were surrounded as hunter-gatherers by predators in our environment who had this idea that we made excellent material for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And in order to survive, we developed this response. In a threatening situation, we would either run or we would fight. And as I mentioned to some of you the other day, when I was in medical school, we remembered the functions of the limbic system, which controls these survival responses as the 4 F's: feeding and fighting and fleeing and, of course, procreation. So the whole idea was, if you can't kill it, then F it. And unfortunately, that's where we are even today. All you have to do is look at the news, even at the highest levels. So, and it's the culture of our corporate world, it's the culture of our political world. You have to look at what's happening in India and Pakistan at the moment. It's the culture of our society. If you were to ask a Vedic seer, what's wrong? They would tell you that it's an imbalance between the masculine and feminine energies of the universe. We have a dominance of the predatory male energy. When the male energy is in balance, then it's okay. It's actually very good. It expresses itself as confidence and courage and decisiveness and valor and discipline and power and strength and will. But when it's not in balance, when it so dominates our culture, it makes us predators. And we are predators. If you were to look at this planet from some vantage point in outer space, and you were to ask yourselves, who's the most dangerous animal on this planet? I think it would be the human male species at this time in our history. Seriously. We are the only animal that kills its own kind, frequently in the name of religion and God. We're the only species that is responsible for the desecration of the ecology. We are the only species that is destroying all other species. And like other predators, we risk our extinction. But we are also the only animal that is beginning to recognize the value of self-awareness. We are the only species that knows that we are aware of our awareness. We are conscious of our consciousness. And as a result of that, we can go beyond the fight-flight response into intuitive modes and creative modes and visionary modes and ultimately get in touch with the experience of the sacred. And so I think one of the things that we do need to do is bring back what the Vedic tradition has called Shakti. Shakti is the feminine energy of the universe. And feminine doesn't necessarily mean female. Feminine, of course, means the holistic, nourishing, intuitive, wise, nurturing energy that is in a sense played out in the physiology of the cosmos and in our own selves. Beauty, intuition, nurturing, affection, tenderness, values that could really save our species and could save our planet, could prevent us from our own extinction. In the Vedic tradition, these feminine forces are referred to as Shakti. Shakti means power. And real power comes from Shakti, from goddess energy. The first Shakti is the Shakti of pure awareness. It's in Vedic tradition referred to as Chitta Shakti. Chitta means pure consciousness, pure awareness. The second Shakti is known as Ananda Shakti, which means the knowingness of our essential nature as bliss or happiness. Because before we have turbulence in our internal dialogue, we're pretty happy. And after we fulfill our desires, we're also happy. So before the birth of a desire, we're happy. After the fulfillment of our desire, we're back to the same place where we started from. Which means that our essential state must be one of happiness. And the Veda goes to great lengths to draw distinctions between happiness, real happiness, which is bliss, and then object referral happiness, which is just happiness. If you're happy for a reason, then that's just another form of misery. But if you're happy for no reason whatsoever, then you're in bliss. Then you're in touch with your own self, the exaltation of spirit. That is Ananda Shakti. The third expression of Shakti, or the goddess energy, is the Shakti of intent. Intention which is grounded in pure being. That kind of intent has magical powers. It has infinite organizing power. It can orchestrate an infinity of space-time events to bring about the outcome that we have intended, because it orchestrates its own know-how. And that orchestration of know-how is called Jnana Shakti, the Shakti of knowingness, which is the same thing as intuition. To tap into a form of intelligence which is beyond the rational, which is wise and nourishing, as I said, that does not have a win-lose orientation, that is grounded in the security of self-esteem rather than self-image. We have this great confusion in our society between self-image and self-esteem. The self-image is just the fear-based anxiety of our ego, and self-esteem comes from knowing who we really are. And finally, there is the Shakti that is inherent in action, which is called Kriya Shakti. So we have Ichha Shakti, the Shakti of intention, Jnana Shakti, the Shakti of knowingness or intuition, and Kriya Shakti, the Shakti of power, of action, which is rooted in creativity, an action which is rooted in freedom, an action that is rooted in awareness, not action that is always in anticipation of other people's responses, and therefore action that is generated out of fear of approval, or action that is so grounded in our need to control, so that we are continually playing out control dramas. I think we mentioned Castaneda once or twice in this course. He says there are only three kinds of control dramas and three kinds of people: the nice, the nasty, and the indifferent. And they're all control dramas. Ayurveda also identifies these control dramas: intimidation, confrontation, which is the Pitta control drama, nice kind of manipulation, which is the Vata control drama, and the stubborn indifference, which is the Kapha control drama. It's quite interesting to see the parallels. And when you do that, you lose Shakti, you lose the power that is inherent in, as I said earlier, the energy of the goddess. So, before Harold gives us an overview of how scientifically we are beginning to understand a holistic approach to the treatment of emotional turbulence, I want to give you just an overview of how we would approach emotional turbulence, an understanding of that. And we do have programs at the center for emotional well-being, if you will, to remove emotional toxicity from our lives. And it doesn't matter if the source of toxicity is in our emotions or in our relationships or in our food or in our environment. Ultimately, it all leads to the same thing, a toxic body. And more scientists are beginning to understand that it is this toxicity that leads to illness. Ultimately, even if you look at cardiovascular disease or cancer or degenerative disorders or accelerated aging, these days I think many scientists will say that it's a result of the buildup of toxins in our system. In fact, some scientists would go so far as to identify these toxins, the free radicals that you hear about, hydroxy radical, hydrogen peroxide, singlet oxygen, things, lipid peroxide that build up in our system as a result of toxic experiences. And as I said, the toxic experience could be a diet or a contamination in your food, but it could be a toxic emotion, it could be a toxic relationship. They all lead to the same thing in the end. And in fact, more and more scientists are now recognizing that even things that like cardiovascular disease or cancer, there's a permissive effect of free radicals in these situations. And much of our emotional turbulence and even our anxiety and depression is accelerated as a result of this toxicity. So Ayurveda views the build-up of emotional toxicity as a result of not having the ability to deal with pain when it is happening to us, when we are unable to deal with a painful experience in the present, when we do not confront it, when we do not become intimate with it, when we do not know how to release it and move on, then it gets locked up inside us. Life is an experience of contrast, and everything is an experience only if there is contrast to it. You can't have an up without a down. You can't have a hot without a cold. And you can't have pleasure without pain. You wouldn't know the difference. And if you went to a movie where everyone was being very good all the time, you'd walk out in 2 minutes. It would be boring. And life is interesting only because of contrast. And therefore, pain is a necessary experience of our lives. Suffering may not be. Suffering is when we do not know how to deal with the pain, and then it gets locked up inside us and it becomes suffering. So in this framework, if we have not dealt with pain as and when it occurred, if we have not become intimate with it, and if it is locked up inside us, it is bound to express itself sometime later. Remembered pain expresses itself as anger and hostility and rage. It is the experience of some painful experience in the past, and I think the other night when we were discussing pregnancy and conception, we even, if you remember, spoke about how painful experiences or hostility experienced by the fetus in the womb will result in rage afterwards. And much of the schooling for criminal behavior, as we are seeing so much of it, is that pain that is experienced on the emotional level even before people are born. Hostility, anger, rage are remembered pain. If you anticipate the same pain in the future, that is, of course, anxiety and fear. If you direct the pain back into your own self, that is guilt. And the depletion of energy, which happens with all of the above, is depression. So you can see that all these toxic experiences that we label as neuroses and ultimately carried to the extreme psychosis are actually a result of not being able to feel our hurt or our pain. So how does one approach that? And I think for purposes of convenience, we can say that there is a stepwise approach to it in steps. The first thing is, if you want to be clear emotionally, if you want to be free emotionally, we have to take responsibility for our own pain. And frequently we don't do that. We immediately think it's someone's fault. It may be. But unless we take responsibility, then we're not going to be able to deal with it. If we just say it's somebody else's fault, then we're going to hope for the rest of our lives for that somebody else to change. And I think Harold will tell you, even as a psychiatrist who makes his living seeing patients, that it's difficult to change even when you want to change. Try changing somebody else. You can wait forever. So unless you take responsibility for your own painful experiences, and responsibility does not mean blame, it means what the word says, responsibility. So responsibility is just the ability to have a creative response to a challenge. And the more creative we are in our abilities to respond to challenges, the more responsible we become. First step is responsibility. The second step is the ability to witness our pain without the need to judge it, without the need to label it or define it or describe it or analyze it or evaluate it or judge it. Just to be an independent, non-judgmental witness of the experience. And the best way to witness that experience is actually to just feel the sensations in your own body. Because every emotion that we have has these two components, an experience in the mind and a sensation in the body. Every emotion is that, a thought and a sensation that come together. The thought is that fluctuation in consciousness, and the sensation is the molecule that corresponds to it. First there was the Word, and the Word was made into flesh. So, if you don't like that, you can say first there was the quantum fluctuation, then it transformed into the neuropeptide. But the fact is that we call our emotions feelings only because we feel them. We feel them in our body. They're sensations in our body. We say, I was so touched by what you said. Why? Because it's an experience of subtle touch in our physical body. We feel it. The emotion is a thought and a sensation at the same time. It's that thought that has transformed itself into the molecule. And sometimes, just in the mere witnessing of that experience, we disrupt the link, because we can't have our attention in two places at the same time. We can't be thinking about it and feeling the experience at the same time. So if we put our attention on the sensation, we disrupt that link between the thought and the sensation. And in the mere witnessing of it, the emotion dissipates. Try it next time. You're in a traffic jam, or you're in a hurry driving on the road, and somebody cuts you off. Instead of doing this, you actually feel your own body. And as you feel your own body, you recognize that, what the heck, let it go. So in the mere witnessing of the pain, there is the dissipation of the energy that's there in the emotion. The third step is to define what it is. I might even take you through an experience right now to do that. Defining means then finally, after having witnessed it, to give it a label. Is it hurt? Is it anger? Is it feeling abandoned? Is it feeling insecure? What is it? Is it jealousy? Define it. Know what it is. And then at some point later, express it to your own self. To actually write down what you experienced. And at some point later, to then release it. So usually in traditional cultures, in traditional healing cultures, the release was through a ritual. Ritual is very effective in that it traps your attention. And unfortunately, we are now a society that has been deprived of its rituals and its mythology. And that's also part of our emotional and spiritual bankruptcy. That we neither have mythology, we've lost mythical anchors, so to speak. Carl Jung said that beneath the turbulence of our internal dialogue, our unconscious motivations dwell in the mythical world, which means deep inside us there are gods and goddesses in embryo, archetypal energy states that stoke the fire of life in our souls, that we are inspired by these energies that want to lift us from the ordinary world into the mythical world of magic and wonder and beauty. Tagore, great Indian poet, said, when I feel beauty, I know it has truth. Because beauty, truth, harmony, these are actually part of that conscious energy field. And so even though we may not know it, we are driven by these mythical needs. something that may seem to you as banal as a corporate takeover bid actually partakes of the heroic journey as much as the Argonauts seeking the golden fleece, or climbing Everest is driven by the same ambition to reach the abode of gods as Icarus flying toward the sun. In mythical terms, this is a sacred journey into the underworld, into the subconscious, portrayed in countless myths, from Persephone's abduction by Pluto to Orpheus seeking his bride among the shades of Hades, to Krishna playing and frolicking in the playgrounds of Leela, etc., etc. We need to get in touch with that part of ourselves. And a lot of that has to do with ritual. Ritual is magic. And that's why, our children want to join gangs, because we've lost magic that comes from mythology. Because gangs have leadership, gangs have imagination, gangs have initiation rites. What our children are looking for is the return of that magic. Ritual is very important. And having released that through ritual, the final way to ultimately deal with that is to share it, to share your experience with somebody that's on the same wavelength, that's somebody who understands, that's somebody who has the same intention of healing as you have. And if you go through that process of taking responsibility, of witnessing, of defining, of expressing, of releasing, and of sharing, then you don't build it up inside you as toxic experience that ultimately leads to almost every disorder that you can think of these days is related in some way to what modern society calls stress. But that's such a vague and nebulous term. In Ayurveda, stress is that which interferes with the spontaneous expression of nature's intelligence as it moves through us in the state of ecstasy or joy. And when we lose the joy, then that energy gets blocked and ultimately gives rise to all kinds of things. So, do you mind if I take them through a process for 2 minutes and then we'll go? So what I'd like you to do right now is, if you would just close your eyes for a few minutes. If you close your eyes for a few minutes and recall, if you will, some real disturbing emotional experience that you may have had in terms of relationship in the last few months or perhaps a year or something, but something in the recent past. Just relive that in your imagination right now. And as you're reliving this experience in your awareness, start to feel what's happening in your body as you experience this. Try and localize that sensation. Where is it? Is it in your stomach, in your heart, in some muscle spasm, wherever it is? Maybe in more than one location. Experience that emotion in your body now as you are reliving or imagining that turbulence that you experienced recently. feel it. Be in touch with it. Become intimate with it. And even as you do that, acknowledge to yourself that it is your responsibility to deal with it. You can't depend on anyone. It is your responsibility, a creative response to this. And now, see if you can put a label to it, define it. Abandonment, jealousy, insecurity, whatever comes to mind. Okay, so please open your eyes. Taking you very quickly through the first few steps of experiencing, taking responsibility, witnessing, and defining. The next step would be to actually express this by writing the experience, writing what you really feel about it on a piece of paper. And then at some point to release it through ritual. So we haven't gone through those steps, of course, but the ritual could be a ceremony, could be writing it down on a piece of paper and then just burning it. Rituals are very important. Give significance and meaning to an event that inherently may not have any meaning, but it acquires meaning when you give it meaning. And then at some point to even share it with someone who can understand, with someone who is capable of experiencing love and compassion and empathy. So let's complete this exercise right now by just standing up and doing a little ritual to release, even though we haven't fully expressed. Will we do that? So raise your hands, and as you bring down your hand like this, just follow my instructions. Say, ha! Let's do it together. So, rituals can be around many things. The most effective things are those that evoke laughter. Laughter, imagination, visualization, breathing techniques, massage, changing your environment, doing something dramatic, always. Crying can be a ritual. Sleep can be a ritual. So there are many ways of release. And if you do this hopefully, you will avoid building up emotional toxicity. So that was just a brief introduction. And what Harold has been able to do, Dr. Bloomfield has been able to do, is take the knowledge that in many ways he introduced us to many, many years ago, and now take it one step further, because Ayurveda and many of the healing traditions of the world have held that there is wisdom in not only this body, but also in the cosmic body. We are part of the cosmic body. The microcosm and the macrocosm are inseparably one. The human body and the cosmic body are the same. We are not outsiders of nature. We are insiders. Remember that Rumi poem, I have lived on the lip of insanity, wanting to know reasons, knocking at the door. The door finally opens. I've been knocking from the inside. We are contained in the cosmos. And therefore, whatever is happening here is also happening in nature. Whatever is happening in nature is also happening in our bodies. When we look at the wisdom of plants, when we look at the wisdom in nature, we see that it matches the wisdom of our own body. Our inner intelligence, which is the ultimate and supreme genius and mirrors the wisdom of the universe. And as I mentioned the other day, in our eagerness sometimes to take the active ingredient out, we, as the great seers of Ayurveda would say, and other holistic traditions would say, we take the intelligence out from plants, but we leave the wisdom behind. And so there's an inherent therapeutic, toxic safety built into plants. And so, actually, of all the people I know, no one has been more responsible for bringing this awareness than Dr. Harold Bloomfield, who's a practicing psychiatrist in this area, an author of many, many books, including one of my favorite ones, How to Feel Safe in an Unsafe World. I was going to say dangerous, but nothing is dangerous. So, How to Feel Safe in an Unsafe World, and many other great, wonderful bestsellers. And of course, his latest book about healing anxiety with herbs, which he will be signing later. And there will be a book signing afterwards for those of you who are interested. So, Dr. Bloomfield, please enlighten us. Hey, come here.
Thank you so much, Deepak. That was a kind introduction and a very enlightening description of holistic healing of emotional turbulence. The process you took us through was going from the ow to the wow. And I couldn't help notice that we went to the ha-ha, which quite literally, there's such meaning in words, to become outrageous. Literally, we start with the rage, what is binding us, what is absolutely great self-righteousness is keeping us stuck in boundaries. And then we take it to the place where we're outrageous. We become unbounded and can be a being of light once again, not just stuck in the carvings in rock. It's a fascinating time that we live in that we're at the cusp, and I think the enlightened seers that Deepak was alluding to, the enlightened seers would say that we're at a cusp moving from Kali Yuga to Sat Yuga, from the age of ignorance to the beginning of the age of enlightenment. And as Deepak alluded, the characteristic of the age of ignorance, these last at least 5,000 years, has been one of domination. That has been the primary model of relationship. Domination between husband and wife, domination between parent and child, between teacher and student, between, quote, boss and employee, and our relationship with nature, where even our metaphors in the, in quote, psychiatry have been about conquering anxiety, mastering stress, conquering cancer. The whole idea of fixing, cutting our way into health and well-being. And we're moving into an era of dominion. We're going from domination to dominion. Dominion, first and foremost, with our own nature. As Deepak said, having more balance between what has been the male energy running amok, which is what chauvinism is, that conquering, that domination, and becoming in balance with the goddess energy, the nurturing quality. And dominion is a very exciting opportunity for each and every one of us. Psychiatry means psyche, meaning the spirit, and iatros, to make whole. And each of us have that opportunity. I couldn't help noticing a beautiful bluebird flying by, and that is a good metaphor for each of us, the freedom to leave our boundaries. Let me describe, if I may, I'm going to take a moment and have Deepak do me the honors of, I just felt like a son that you were helping get ready for the prom, so it was that was very rebalancing for me just now. Let me, first of all, describe some of the statistics. 65 million Americans suffer from anxiety annually. Depression, 30 million people. Insomnia, 70 million people. We are a stressed out nation. In the Western world, we have become addicted to velocity, moving faster and faster without learning how to arrest, bring rest to our nervous system. And plants have a marvelous creative intelligence to restore balance. I've even come to think of a human being as consisting of an animal-like body, but with a plant-like nervous system. You can think of the brain as being cauliflower-like, and our spinal column and spinal nerves as being a root-like structure controlling that animal-like body. And as we get more in touch with our plant-like nature, we get more in touch with the planet, the fact that we are earthlings, we are earth creatures, And in acknowledging that and nurturing that, our spirituality, which is bound in the Earth Mother, can truly begin to flourish. Let me briefly take you through some of the incredible herbal medicines that are coming into our collective consciousness. And interestingly, by looking at these units of creative intelligence through the window of science, which is a real integration of the masculine and the feminine, the scientist and the artist. One, of course, was St. John's wort. There have been now 38 double-blind, placebo-controlled studies that St. John's wort can be as effective as synthetic antidepressants, Prozac and the like, for mild to moderate depression. Indeed, Hippocrates prescribed St. John's wort for nervous unrest. And the side effect profile is so little. There's a little bit of photosensitivity for those of us that are light-skinned, but remarkably little in the way of side effects. Another few herbs that we need to be aware of is kava. Comes to us from Fiji. I think it's no accident where these herbs come from. Kava is a wonderful natural tranquilizer. Just think of Fiji and the whole joyous culture, celebration of nature. And kava has been shown in studies in pharmacopsychiatry and other leading journals to be just as effective as benzodiazepines. Benzodiazepines came to us from out of the laboratory, and yet more people are addicted to these Valium-like drugs than all the people addicted to heroin and cocaine. We consume over 5 billion doses of these Valium-like tranquilizers each year, despite the fact that they become addicting, often within just a couple of weeks of use, even according to the PDR, the physician's desk reference. Kava is not addicting. Can be just as effective when it's used in the extract form, where the most potent ingredients are concentrated. Another fascinating herb is milk thistle extract, which there was studies in the Journal of the American Medical Association this past year that 78% of American adults show evidence of subclinical liver damage, elevated liver enzymes. Milk thistle extract has been shown now in hundreds of studies to be able to detoxify the liver and allow for regeneration of liver cells. Even people who are unfortunate enough to have acute amanita mushroom poisoning, which can kill you within 12 hours, milk thistle extract can reverse that kind of acute hepatitis and severe liver damage. So milk thistle extract is another great gift. Another ginkgo biloba extract in a study in the Journal of the American Medical Association has been shown to be helpful for early Alzheimer's disease. It's a remarkable brain booster. I think anyone over the age of 40 ought to consider taking ginkgo biloba extract. And on, and certainly my new book, Healing Anxiety with Herbs, has a lot more description. And those of you who watch 2020, I'll be on a show within the next 2 weeks on healing anxiety with herbs. And I think you'll see the remarkable range of people that it has been helpful for. Also, of course, there's Ayurvedic herbal medicines. My dear colleague and friend David Simon did a brilliant job of reviewing some of the Ayurvedic herbs that can really make a difference, ashwagandha and many others. If you are interested in reversing anxiety and depression, I think the best antidote is bliss. Bliss is a great healing for blisters. And if you have the privilege of going through the Chopra Center for Wellbeing and having some warm sesame oil poured over your crown chakra and your third eye, certainly you've had the experience of bliss washing away the blisters. I like to think of what it is to be a human being, and as Teilhard de Chardin said, a spiritual being in a human form, as having 5 aspects. One, of course, is the body. And the body, we certainly need to heal our nervous system on the level of biology. The next level is on the level of our emotions. And sometimes we need to do that with great catharsis. I'm sometimes concerned that psychotherapy becomes too much intellecting. And certainly the opportunity to create a safe place to do some of our deeper healing, to do some of that crying ritual, to do some of that raging against the light. Goddess can take our rage. We have to create a safe place for it. And indeed, the reason we get into controlling so much is because we don't feel safe. When we start to feel more safe within, then it's easier to give up control. It's easier to just take it as it comes, neither anticipating nor resisting change. Simple innocence. The other aspect of our human beingness is the intellect. We have to learn to be vigilant about what thoughts were stimulated in the age of ignorance. And as we start to experience the light, bring our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors into that, literally washing some of the carvings in rock in our nervous system, the resentments from childhood, the resentments from adolescence where we were competing with one another and comparing with one another, and learning to bring that into the light, where we realize tatvamasya dilaksham, I am that, thou art that, all this is that. And where our intellect starts to have new thoughts that rise above, that transcend the lessons of ignorance that we have all internalized. I certainly have. And a fourth aspect of what it is to be a human being is our social self. That as we start to experience some bliss within, we can recognize much more easily that we are one another as well. We don't end at our skin. As Ralph Waldo Emerson said, that he was certain that who he was did not end at the top of his head. We are cosmic beings, and where we become as committed to the well-being of others, and the way it's been structured is that brings even more joy. Not doing it out of martyrdom. In the age of domination. Spirituality became associated with martyrdom. You literally died for your cause. The more pain and agony you could die in, the more you would be elevated to sainthood. In the era of dominion, it's the ability to radiate bliss and maintain that bliss even in some dark places. That is the new model of spirituality. And finally, the fifth aspect, which I've already alluded to, is our spirituality. But it's a living spirituality. It's not simply codified beliefs. It's recognizing every moment as the bluebird of happiness flies around our room this evening, that life is, first of all, a series of amazing lessons for us as an individual. I feel extremely humbled and privileged that I've been able to learn many lessons, and I look forward to many more, and then start writing about it. Certainly, each one of us has an amazing story of love that has gone through the era of domination and submission in our own lives, and where our spirit at times has been trampled, and where we felt shame. Shame is an extremely important emotion to heal. In fact, we're so ashamed of shame that we won't even acknowledge it. And shame is where we think, what's wrong with me? Everyone else is okay. I can see the wholeness and the light in everyone else. But where you don't allow that worthiness to truly rise up in you, truly experience the God in you. And as we start to become masters in the old sense of being in dominion of our biology, of our psychology, what it is to go through the human lifespan, it is as amazing to go from childhood to adolescence, from adolescence to young adulthood, etc., as it is to watch a caterpillar go into a chrysalis and the chrysalis into a butterfly. The transformations are enormous. And to learn what it is and how we can nurture one another as we go through this. And to also start to be honest with one another about our own experiences of our dark side, some of Debbie Ford's wonderful work, to really honor our smallness, our pettiness, our ego that wants to control and manipulate and conquer. Anyone not have that? And how proud are you of that? and moving into dominion, our higher self making a place for ego, making a place for being responsible for our localized perception, and at the same time really honoring our own inner nature. Herbal medicines are coming to the fore right now. They've been around for thousands of years, but they're coming to the fore right now because we are recognizing the importance of Mother Nature. The essential, our rainforests, we're literally destroying our own alveoli, our own lungs. as we speak. And undoubtedly thousands of herbal medicines that could help us cure cancer and lower our cholesterol level and other marvelous healing opportunities. So I urge us to become more familiar with these gifts from Mother Nature that remind us of the gift that each one of us are. We too are a field of flowers, and the emotional turbulence that we experience from time to time is a contrast for the bliss that we know is our deepest experience. And to honor our healing journey. Sometimes we talk about, they are doing their healing. We're each doing our healing in very profound ways. And when we talk about these units of creative intelligence, these herbs, this is the love coming to us from Mother Nature to help restore our own inner nature, our own dignity. And certainly Ayurveda is an absolute wealth of experience of how these herbs can assist us in that healing journey. But it doesn't end, of course, with just the herbs. It really is the Veda. It really is the knowledge of the wholeness of life and honoring our particular place in the web of existence. So I'm honored to be with each of you this evening. I hope that Deepak, you and I can take some questions and have you share some experiences. But I want to thank you for being able to participate in this wonderful tape series that bringing great light into the world. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, if that's okay. But
sure.
As you were speaking, when you spoke of shame, I went back to a poem from a long time ago from Rumi. Who says, by God, when you see your beauty, you'll be the idol of yourself. When you were speaking of ego, he says in one place, I want to sing like birds sing, not knowing, not caring who hears or what they listen to, or what they think. The question I wanted to ask you is that since we refer to herbs as coming from Mother Nature or Mother Earth, isn't just the whole emphasis on herbal treatment part of the return to the feminine? And secondly, that in a sense, if you begin to understand, even from the point of view of physics, the forces of nature that you've spoken about before as the unified field, which is electromagnetic forces, gravity, strong and weak interactions. Ultimately, it's all electromagnetism, isn't it? I mean, they're all inseparable. And so plants are beings of light because they take that light, the electromagnetic spectrum, and when we eat plants, or even when we eat animals that eat plants, we're really ingesting light, and we're all, in a sense, just the same light. circulating, and the whole goal of these strategies that we're speaking of is to take us from this dense material body to the realm of light, to be, if I may use the word, you used it, so I feel safe using it, to be enlightened. What does it mean to be enlightened? To be with the light, and also to be light-hearted, to be carefree.
To be delighted.
To be delighted as well. And David often speaks of this legend where they say when you die and you go to the celestial realms, an angel sort of reaches out inside, out into your heart, and plucks your heart out of your chest and puts it on a scale. And on the other side he puts a feather. And if your heart is lighter than a feather, you can go in, otherwise you have to recycle.
Beautiful. That's the wisdom of healing. Yes. Yes. Certainly in the era of Kali Yuga, which we're still in, medicine, the business of healing, the busyness of healing, has been characterized by trying to manipulate matter, cutting, synthesizing, etc. And not to say that there isn't a place for that. Sometimes if there are gross disturbances in a crisis, it may require some gross manipulation. We don't have shame associated with these things. In the era of Sat Yuga, which we are moving into at the speed of light, the medicine we are all contributing to and part of is energy medicine. Recognizing that while we may appear solid to one another at this very narrow band of the electromagnetic spectrum, that the larger truth is that we are beings of light, space that has somehow found a way to make these sounds that we recognize and interpret and bounce back and forth to one another for the sheer delight of it all. And where energy medicine will be bringing in higher energy forms to bring us into light chaos as opposed to chaos that matters. And plants have a marvelous role in that. The Vedas, if you've ever had a chance to read some of the Upanishads and other portions of the Rig Veda, they talk about plants as being divine. They worship the soma that comes from the plants, that generates bliss within our nervous system. And that holds true even for the food that we eat. I mean, we make distinctions between herbs and foods, but truly, these are all gifts from Mother Nature. In the era of Kali Yuga, we were predominantly meat-oriented, M-E-A-T, not M-E-E-T. Deepak alluded to at the very beginning of our talk today, the ultimate of fight or flight and the predator response, have an animal and eat it. And now we're all collectively moving more towards vegetarianism. There's a recognition, even from the American Cancer Society, that if we all were to eat our 4 to 5 servings per day of fresh fruits and vegetables, we could cut our cancer rates in half. So those too are nature's gifts to us. And indeed, not only do we cut our cancer rates in half, but I'm sure we've all had the experience of we also become lighter. Our thought forms become less enmeshed in bloody resentments, and we are able to be more peach-like in our appreciation.
So anyone have questions, comments? Yes. 1 second, we'll give you the microphone so everyone can hear you.
If I may ask you a specific question about the herbs that you mentioned. Have you done any study with St. John's wort and children? Because I'm asking you this because I've heard that they're giving St. John's wort complete, which has vitamin B in it, to children that have attention deficit. Have you heard anything about that?
Sure. I have to be a true author and say I have a chapter in my book on attention deficit disorder. In Europe, they being even the physicians in Germany, France, England, will always start with an herbal medicine. That is considered the first line of treatment for anxiety, for depression, for attention deficit. Indeed, a lot of what we call attention deficit, children don't come running up and say, gee, I'm feeling a bit anxious today. They often are hyperactive. They're often mirroring some of the anxiety that adults are suppressing in a kind of seesaw-like emotional swing. There's a great deal of research showing that, and there's basically 2 types. There's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder that responds very well to kava, valerian root extract, chamomile hops that help a child to calm down, but without the harsh side effects that kids are particularly susceptible to with the synthetic antidepressants and major tranquilizers. For attention deficit disorder without hyperactivity, ginkgo biloba extract, which takes a couple of months to build up in the system, is marvelous at helping to create more mental clarity. And right along with that, then it frees us up to create a safe, key word. Deepak started this evening talking about the news. We're hearing our children murdering one another. Attention deficit disorder is so prominent in our culture, not because there's a sudden epidemic. It's because our children don't feel safe. And so right along with these herbs, they have to be delivered in a loving fashion, not just seeing someone at an HMO for 3 minutes and, take this Ritalin, delivered in a loving fashion, and then creating a more natural atmosphere in terms of schooling so that we, rather than forcing a child to adapt to a rigid industrial model school system where we create the kind of safe and nurturing atmosphere where a child can learn. Very famous German poet who said, "We cannot learn what we do not love." And we have to make it safe for our children to love what they wish to learn. Thank you.
Over here. Could you bring the microphone here?
Thank you. Do herbs have any role in treatment for tardive dyskinesia? And if they do, what kind of herb?
Are people familiar with tardive dyskinesia? Tardive dyskinesia is not exclusively but frequently found as a horrific side effect to the major tranquilizers, the phenothiazines, that while they certainly have, and please, have had a marvelous role in early treatments for schizophrenia, quite a number have developed tardive dyskinesia with all kinds of very difficult muscle spasms, and that sometimes are irreversible even when the phenothiazines are discontinued. To answer bottom line, no. There is no specific treatment as yet for tardive dyskinesia. What's interesting is that the whole treatment of psychosis began in India 5,000 years ago with the use of, it's called Indian snake root, reserpine, which, Indian snake oil, thank you. With a snake oil. And certainly I'm convinced that there are still herbs out there that we have not fully looked for, that ethnobotanists are rapidly trying to travel the world before we destroy these future medicines, that can be an ideal treatment for psychosis without those kinds of side effects. If you look at psychosis, it's the loss of boundaries. And certainly there are mental illnesses. In general, herbal medicines are more for the mild to moderate variety of anxiety, of depression, of stress disorders. However, the search for these remarkable units of creative intelligence, and even as potential cures for tardive dyskinesia, need to continue. Thank you.
Hi, I just wanted to thank both of you. I don't think you know it, but on Monday I'm going to go to the Chopra Clinic to do 3 days of Ayurvedic, and then...
you lucky stiff.
But then I get to come see you on the 10th. And
Oh!
I just wanted to say, I wanted to thank, so you know, your staff has been so great in trying to accommodate me and help me. I've been, I don't want to use the word suffering, I've been off of work healing myself from a diagnosis of severe depression. I don't think I look very depressed here right now. And it's just been really hard. Both of your books and your centers have just helped me so much, where traditional medicine, there's no help at all. I had a call from one of Dr. Chopra's nurses the other day just saying, I'm just calling to see if you're okay. You don't have to call me back. And another thing in your book, the Healing Depression, I was really afraid. I'm taking Effexor, and I was like, oh, they're going to put me on drugs. They don't know. And then you said it's okay.
It's okay.
Absolutely. So just thank you so much. Both of you.
You're so sweet. And tell me your name?
My name is Linda.
Linda. I look forward to know you more on the 10th as well, but you'll be blissed out by then. I'd like to, talking about staff, I'd like to acknowledge, if I may, a number of amazing people in my life. First and foremost, my wife, Sarah Batiste, and my assistant, Diane, and my agent, my book agent, very important, Margaret McBride. They're sitting right here on this table, and I'm surrounded by goddess energy of the highest frequency. I'm a lucky man.
I'm an oncologist, and what really brought me here was listening to my patients and hearing their neediness for somebody to understand how to integrate what they've heard in the community and what I can offer. And I think it's really unfortunate that myself and my colleagues have no grounding, know where to really learn about this and to be brought more into the mainstream of the complementary medicines that are available. Is there any basis for bringing this into the medical schools, for teaching doctors at an earlier stage of their careers?
First of all, Lauren, is it? I want to acknowledge you. It is absolutely great. And the revolution is going on right here, right now. These journeys into healing. And the fact that each of you are here, you're not only here for yourself, you represent an absolute transformation of consciousness. And so you're making it happen. I can tell you this, I am literally experiencing no resistance. Sometimes I'm asked, physicians in general now realize that we need these, quote, alternative modalities. In fact, it's now being called already integrative. We need to keep a good science about it, systematic means of gaining reliable knowledge. I can tell you later, a number of medical schools that already have some really excellent additions. There's still additions to their program. And I've been doing a series of seminars across the country for physicians and other health professionals in herbal medicine with just great attendance, remarkable. What I still would like to see, however, is to have the experience of going through medical school be a journey into our own healing.
About 5 years ago, my brother was a professor, associate professor at Harvard Medical School, asked me to come and speak to a few of his colleagues. And I did, and they just listened to me in silence. And at the end, I said, any questions? And nobody asked me any questions. And then they went to my brother and they said, do you really believe that crap? But this year I was asked to give the keynote at Harvard Medical School. So there is a change. David was invited recently to speak at Tufts University course that was given on healing, and our Magical Beginnings program for pregnancy is now getting into the mainstream. And right here, sitting on this table, are a group of physicians from Alvarado Hospital, and we're going to be working with them. So, David?
I just wanted to make a comment. We've talked about how when some mind-body principle begins to get off balance, it often tends to spiral further and further into that level of imbalance. And then at some point we have to bring it back. And I think we're seeing that very clearly on a planetary level in that it takes about 18 pounds of vegetable matter to create 1 pound of hamburger. And the need for the vegetable matter to supply the cattle industry is really the primary reason we're raping the rainforest. And so when we begin to make that shift back towards those simpler, more direct access of nature's gifts, we'll no longer need to keep clearing the rainforest. We'll once again have access to those gifts. So there's a very practical reason to reestablish that energy in our lives.
That's a great point. Could I take one comment? I have to make one political comment before we close this evening, and it has to do with David's comment just now. We can now start to shift the collective consciousness in the political arena. We're starting to do it in the medical arena. Why can't we do it in the political arena? The only thing in the way is apathy. The only thing in the way is apathy. And I want to announce that I'm running for governor of California. And it's a wonderful. The Natural Law Party is the fastest growing third party in America. There were over 2.5 million people voting for the Natural Law Party in the last election. And a vote for the Natural Law Party is not a wasted vote. It is a vote for, first and foremost, having preventive medicine be the number one priority in society. We can cut our expenditures. We're spending $1 trillion in this country on so-called health care. It's disease care. And we haven't budged our life expectancy because of any of those interventions. And we have the knowledge already through the practice of meditation, through nutrition that is more plant-based and less animal-based, and through good exercise programs and learning how to process our emotions instead of, be stuck with them, to cut our healthcare expenditures in half, and to bring out the genius of every human being. No one should be leaving our school system without a sense of enlightenment, without experiencing their own light. So join us. Join us.
That's right. If you're in California, please make sure that you do vote. And right. I'm going to be voting.
You're so sweet.
Okay. 8:40. Okay, we have time just for a couple of questions. So, yes. Yes, please, of course, absolutely.
I browsed your brochure and I wrote this poem.
All right.
Let nature govern over you. Follow her laws, and you will know freedom. The laws of love are kind and fair. Guilt and denial are a prison. Free yourself, for you are your own captor. The puzzle of the laws of love is one that never ceases. From causes to effect, we're always picking up the pieces.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Woo. Beautiful.
Do any of you take any type of artificial antioxidants such as vitamin A, E, C? And do you believe in it for prevention of aging?
Yes, we do believe in antioxidants, but we also prefer, if possible, to use herbal antioxidants. In Ayurveda, there's an herb called amlaki. The Latin name for it is Embolica myrobolum. It's supposed to be the most powerful antioxidant on planet Earth. It has all the 6 tastes that Ayurveda recommends. It has been used for thousands of years, not as an antioxidant, but as a rejuvenative. It is used in Europe, it is used in Eastern Europe, it is used in all over Asia. It's the only country in the world where, because you cannot patent an herb, it has no interest in the pharmaceutical industry. Having said that, we do believe in the use of all the vitamins that you mentioned as well. You can just call our center anytime. It's called BioChavan. That's the name of it.
Powerful.
So it's right here, actually. You can. Okay, last question. This lady here, please.
Can you address a little bit about possible drug interactions? I know there have been a couple of things on television about kava kava and benzodiazepines, as well as ginkgo biloba and some non-steroidals.
Sure.
And how the other issue is how we let our patients know it's okay to tell us that they're taking herbs so that we know.
Very good, very practical questions. And I like that we're ending on a practical note. First of all, anything potent needs to be prescribed, taken with great respect and humility. There was an article, a letter actually, it wasn't an article, sent to the Annals of Internal Medicine describing a case of one where someone had been taking a good deal of Xanax and, as it turns out, other synthetic medications, and started on kava and then went into, they said, a coma, but it turned out basically was stuporous for a few hours, went to the hospital and was sent home. And of course the herb was blamed for it. Certainly anyone taking kava, which affects the central nervous system, should not, as a general rule, combine it with benzodiazepines or other central nervous system drugs, including alcohol, without certainly physician guidance. Also, other examples of interactions that we need to be careful about and need to be able to answer for our patients are ginkgo biloba, which is a fantastic herbal medicine. However, if you are on a blood thinner, if you are taking heparin or Coumadin, ginkgo biloba also helps reduce the stickiness of platelet aggregation. And if you're taking a good deal of aspirin, that can start to create occasional bleeding problems. So it's very important for the modern-day healer to become extremely well-versed in the pharmacology that has been developed, as well as herbal medicines, and to recognize that these are all, on some level, drugs, but to appreciate that where herbal medicines have their, I think, most profound role is to start to reverse dis-ease, disorder, and dissatisfaction, all the dissing, before it becomes gross disease, gross disorder, anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, and so forth. And before we have to be using pharmaceuticals, that herbal medicines primarily are a first line of treatment and healing that are very complementary to the practice of meditation and to all of the lifestyle changes that we are starting to make as we move from the era of domination into the full bloom of dominion. It's an absolute joy to be with each and every one of you this evening. I look forward to getting to at least say hi. I'll be signing some books down below, and I look forward to getting a cramp in my hand. And I want to thank and honor Deepak. You are a true spiritual warrior. I love you. And all right, and I love you three. So thank you so much. All blessed.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you very much.